Friends, this lecture is about case study. And I observe that at least in India, there are lots of misconceptions about what case study design is. Many people use it as a method. So I thought that for the benefit of younger scholars and especially PhD students, I must make a presentation about case study design. Uh, and I'm going to share that presentation with you today. Friends, the title of this presentation itself is Case Study, Myths and Reality. What does case study refer to? My first question to myself was when I was making this presentation, I asked myself, what, what does case study refer to? Generally, there are myths about it that it is a specific method to study a small number of cases. And thus, if it is a method, then it may be equated to techniques or methods such as observation method, in-depth interviews, or self-administered questionnaire. But in reality, what I found after doing some research on case study, that in reality, it refers to the design of a research study. So please equate it not with uh, methods and techniques of research, but with research design, such as quantitative, qualitative, exploratory, descriptive, and scientific or diagnostic design. Friends, then my question to myself was, what is the history of case study? And I found that case study originated about 200 years ago in sociology, but it is less used by sociologists now. The reason is that sociologists have moved to study of cause and effect relationships, and they are increasingly using statistical and quantitative methods for studying direct, indirect uh, relationships using path analysis, logistic regression, and SEM. Qualitative researchers use case study sometime, but without understanding of what case study is. Nowadays, case study is used more in management information system worldwide and also in education. Education research is benefiting more from case study design than sociology. Now, the next question is, then what is a case? For most of researchers, a case is a respondent. But let me tell you that a case may be an individual, a family, it may be a treatment team, it may be an episode, it may be a community, a clinical session, the police in control cars, anything can be a case. The Green Revolution in India, I will give you one example of Green Revolution of India being studied as a case. Students movement, a social pattern like farmer suicide, MIS, as I said, a social group, an organization, or a country. Anything can be studied by using case study design. Uh, According to Dumas, it's a study of a single phenomenon, a narrative unit, an instantiation of a class of events. So it may be a single phenomenon or it may be instantiation of a class of events. For example, Michael Buraboy studied the rise and fall of Soviet Union and its satellites, the reconstruction of US capitalism, and the African transition to post-colonial in Zambia. As a case, then what is case study? Please note that case study is an empirical inquiry. Empirical is important. It's not speculative model building based on simulation or anything. It's an empirical inquiry that investigates a contemporary phenomenon. So the stress is on contemporary phenomenon. Through case study, you don't study the past. Through case study, you do not make projections. You study something contemporary. Within its real life context, that is another very important term. Within its real life context, especially when the boundaries between the phenomenon and the context are not clearly evident. Case study is a study of interaction between a unit of study and its context. This, as I said earlier, that this unit of study may be an individual, it may be a family, it may be a social group. It can also be seen as an in-depth or whole study or holistic study of a case or a number of cases. It tries the complex account of the raw evidence, analysis, and different bits of evidence, taking case study to a higher level. Studies of decisions. Why are decisions taken? How are decisions implemented? And what are the results of those decisions? Unlike the common practice, some case studies, however, look at a few variables measured over time and virtually ignore the context, such as single case evaluation. Here you focus on one single case, but study it over a long period of time. Then it becomes something like longitudinal design. So case study, when you make a study of one single case, but you study it over a period of time, then it becomes something equivalent to longitudinal study. What are the assumptions of case study? And that is very important to understand what case study is. First assumption is that no unit is indivisible. Whatever you are studying, an individual, a family, an organization, a social group, a country, a phenomenon, can be divided into a number of parts or components. It has a structure. And this case does not exist in vacuum. All the units, all the real units from family to country, or from one pattern to another, one phenomenon to another, all units interact with many other units. Thus, all units have components and all units exist in a social context. So, a case study would study all the components of a unit, their interrelationships, and how they exist in a given social context. Means how are the various components of the event or the pattern or the individual or the family or the social group interact with the social context, external environment. There are multiple variables in a study. One good thing about case study is that you can include multiple variables in a case study, and they are assumed to be having complex relationships with the case under study. Now you may ask me, what is the purpose of case study? The purpose of case study is to answer how and when rather than impact. For impact, you have positivistic approaches. You have survey design and you have experimental design. So we are not, in case study, we are not studying experiment. In survey, we are, in survey or in experimental design, we study the impacts. We test hypothesis that A has an effect on B, A has a positive effect on B, or A has a negative impact on B type. But here we study how. How does something happen and when, in what context? The purpose of case study is to focus on contemporary phenomenon within a real life context. I am repeating this. In the earlier slide also, I mentioned this contemporary phenomenon and real life context because they are sort of defining feature of the case study design. Contemporary phenomenon, empirical study, and real life context. Interaction with the environment. To explore if there are some new combinations of factors there and how frequently do they occur in different cases and in what context, what combinations of factors prevail. Uh, some other defining features of case study are that mostly it focuses on an individual unit. But after dividing the units into its constituent parts, taking multiple perspectives in thickly described case studies into account. It is an attempt to understand the influences of multi-layered social systems on subjects' perspectives and behavior. For example, construction of gender in a chemical industry from functionalist perspective, Marxist perspective, critical perspective, and the perspective of intersectionality. So, a chemical industry discrimination against women is stereotypes that work against women employees' interests in a chemical industry. That is the case, and you are studying this case from multiple perspectives. Where do different perspectives go wrong? And your question is uh, is not whether functionalism is right or wrong, or Marxism is corroborated or not, or intersectionality is falsified or not, but to study that if we apply these perspectives, if we study variables generated by these perspectives, by these lenses, in a study of discrimination against women in a chemical industry, where do we err? What kind of errors do we make in our observation? To give you an example of a good case study, uh, actually, I am giving you three examples of case study. First, Graham Allison's case study of 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, in which US-Soviet Union confrontation could have produced a nuclear holocaust, but it did not, positing three competing theories to explain the crisis: rational actors, complex bureaucracies, and politically motivated groups of persons. The questions were why Soviet Union placed missiles in Cuba at the first place, and why US responded with a blockade and not a strike, and why Soviet Union withdrew them. This was an interesting case. Let me repeat, why US responded with a blockade and not a strike, and why Soviet Union also later withdrew from it. Second, William uh, White's Street Corner Society. If you are a sociologist, you all are familiar with Street Corner Society, which was done in 1955, revealing the social structure of neighborhood in an inner city area of Boston, seen as disorganized due to presence of young male gangs, cliques, and clubs, an area inhabited almost exclusively by Italian immigrants and their children. Uh, so one can study the case of illegal migrants uh, and in Indian cities by using case study design and explore what kind of structure uh, they possess and what is the structure of illegal or legal activities that they have. In a third case, and that was quite interesting, actually, that strengthens a particular type of school in psychology, social relations school. In 1951, Polish American social psychologist Solomon Asch conducted a famous experiment to study how social pressure affects an individual decision making. By asking a group to compare lines on a series of cards, he had a series of cards and some lines were drawn. And uh, he said that it is a kind of vision test. But the students were told in advance what the right response is. So he wanted to know that due to the kind of vision that they have, uh, uh, which uh, which line is seen as longer or shorter than other. In 12 out of 18 cases, they gave wrong answers for compulsion to conform to group norms. When they were told that most of the other students believe that this line is the longest line, there was a tendency among others to say the same, although the answer was actually wrong. So this shows what we see in an event is influence, our perspectives, our attitudes, our evaluations, our values are influenced by our understanding of how others see it. So if you are using case study design, obviously you would like to know what is the usefulness of case study design. To me, it's a vehicle of discovery of something new. It provides an engagement with the real life. It gives you openness about the subject of study and the context, which is not limited by theoretical language or theoretical apparatus. For example, if you use Marxist theory, then uh, your your understanding is limited to class. If you see something from feminist perspective, your understanding is limited by gender. But a case will tell you uh, what is limit, how these perspectives of class and gender limit your holistic and contextual understanding of a particular case, individual, family, organization, or phenomenon. So this design has power to inform, means weaken, rather than confirm or falsify a theory through application of multiple theories to the same case. We learn from triangulation. We learn from theoretical triangulation, triangulation or mixing of different theories. Case study provides you an opportunity to mix different theoretical lenses or theoretical apparatuses. To use Campbell's concept, it offers a high degree of freedom through observations on different things. Here, the term degree of freedom needs to be defined. In quantitative studies, degrees of freedom refers to number of observations. But in case study design, it refers to number of variables you can accommodate in studying a case. You study a case, a single case, or a number of cases by involving in your research a large number of variables. In that sense, because it is a holistic issue. So in that sense, it is uh, a design which provides for a high degree of freedom. Now, something about methodology. As far as methodology is concerned, case studies use replication, means repetition of the study logic and not sampling. In sampling, you have a universe and you decide in advance which sample design to be used and what should be your sample size, etc., etc. Case study design uses the methodology of particularization rather than generalization. If I use the term generalization at all for a case design, it is only in analytical sense. There are variations in research designs, although different case study users have used different designs. Through temporal and spatial combinations means you may study one case or multiple cases at one place or at several places in different contexts, at different places means in different spaces, or you can study one case or multiple cases at one point of time or at multiple point of time. So multiple points of time, which gives rise to some kind of longitudinal study, as I said earlier. And now you may ask me, what does it add to scientific research, so-called scientific research, positivistic research, or research which aims at arriving at mathematical or law-like generalization. Case study will add an analytical, interpretative, and valuational angle to your research. So you can combine case study research with other types of researches. From other types of researches, you can learn something about the law, and through case study, you can have an analytical, interpretative, and valuational approach. Why is it necessary? It is necessary because sciences deal with man, not with inert objects, uh, not with the uh, solid entities that we often encounter in this world without mind, without consciousness. We deal with man who has a consciousness, a subjective and capricious creature. Man, you all know that Max Weber long back talked about subjective meanings. Unless you understand subjective meanings, unless you understand the consciousness of man, in studying rational or human action, you have to study subjective meanings. So, in that sense, and with historic facts, which in their very nature evade complete schematization. Seemingly, the history may be repeating itself in several cases, several instances, and with respect to several features, history may be repeating. But actually, there is no repetition. Gautam Buddha says, the famous Hindi, uh, in Hindi we say that आप एक नदी में बार एक धारा में बार बार स्नान नहीं कर सकते, because history is history. History does not repeat itself in all its aspects. So you require a design, a methodology, a method through which you can study the changing nature of man, you can changing nature of consciousness, and you can also study changing nature of history. A complete schematization of an event which may apply to something that happened 200 years ago may not apply to something similar happening today. Its features, its implications, its causes, its relationship with other social phenomena, political phenomena, uh, human psychology may be entirely of a different kind. And case study design can help you in understanding that. In social sciences, we often ask the question of validity: internal validity, external validity. Validity means truth claim. Whether to ask whether something is valid or not, a theory or a measure or a scale is valid or not, is to ask whether it is true or not. And there are two types of truthness or validities: one external, another internal. External means that something can be generalized to other contexts or other places or other countries also. Internal validity means you are using a sound logic to exclude factors which are not of so much importance and consider all those factors which are important to your study. Case study accounts rely on the same kind of criteria in producing their explanations as McCormick argues establish the validity of narrative accounts in legal cases. That is, the accounts exhibit three things: consistency with all the evidence found. Second, coherence within the account. The bits of evidence fit together. Do the evidences fit together? And third, credibility of explanation in social scientific terms. So, to do a case study or to present findings of a case study is equivalent to fighting a court case. So you have evidence, you have logic, you have history, you have theories, and as long as all your arguments, theoretical arguments, your empirical data, uh, your presentation of uh, a specific understanding of history, and all these things are consistent with each other, you have a valid argument. So source of validity is the consistency. Of course, like any other design or like any other method or technique, it also has limitations. The biggest limitation identified by sociologists, and because of which they are moving more towards scientific paradigm in place of using case study design, is that it is not possible to establish a cause and effect kind of explanation through a case study design. It explains how and when, not why uh, this why something happened. Actually, it or in other words, one can say that it explains why better, because it provides an analytical, interpretative, and historical and holistic understanding of why. Why not in that sense in which cause and effect studies are done in positivistic uh, sociology. Its limitation is best understood in terms of Campbell and Stanley's disparagement of the one-shot case study as having almost no scientific value. Because, as Campbell says, that uh, to have a scientific value, a study has to be designed properly, a sample has to be selected properly, sufficient number of cases have to be considered, and a scientific design has to be used. Your variable, direct, indirect variables, your mediators, moderators, uh, your covariates have to be defined properly, and then only some scientific conclusion can be drawn. But here, this kind of so-called scientific um, um, consideration or categorization or classification of variables is not made. It is the case study itself that tells you what might be the cause or what might be the effect, why, with what consequences, etc., etc. A case study is an uncontrolled study. It's not based on uh, experimental control design. So it's uncontrolled study without possibility of ascribing causation in a single case. Causation in a single case cannot be uh, decided by using this case study design. This is what some sociologists say, and that is why they have almost abandoned case study design. Now, if I'm taking more interest in case study, there must be some reason, because my reason is that case study is a very suitable technique, a very suitable design uh, when topics are to be defined broadly and not narrowly. So it's broad. When you define something broadly, you consider a large number of aspects or high degrees of freedom or more number of variables appearing in complex interrelationships with each other. Then case study is more useful. You can also use multiple sources of data. So triangulation of data uh, in case study design permits you to consider multiple sources of data or data triangulation. Okay, mixing of data, qualitative, quantitative, all types of data, intrusive, non-intrusive, observation, survey, experiment, everything can. Uh, One day I was giving a lecture on case study in one university, and somebody asked, what is the difference between case study and an ethnographic study? I said that ethnography is a method, and you can study a tribe, a community, by using case study design in which ethnographic study can also be combined. Okay, so ethnography will be one aspect, but along with ethnography, along with uh, uh, observations about behavior, beliefs, uh, value system, celebrations, if you also study how are these things uh, related with the external environment of the community, media, globalization, then you have a case study. Because as I said right in the beginning, that in case study, we study something in relationship with its context. And it's a holistic empirical relationship. Uh, I think you must also look for how you can evaluate your case study design. And I raise these questions, three questions. Does it consider any prediction through which a theory can be proven wrong? Second, are all the predictions consistent with one another? Consistency, as I said, in fighting a case, consistency is very important. Different uh, forms of evidence, theories, arguments, mathematics if you use it, experimental findings if you use everything, all techniques, all data that are at your disposal. Does the case study confirm the theory through empirical testing? Does the case study rule out the rival theories? Answers may often be at odds. Alan Lee argued that in case of management information system, because Lee's studies deal more with management information system, the answer to the first three questions is largely yes. Means yes, it considers any prediction through which a theory can be proven wrong. Yes, it provides an opportunity to study whether predictions are consistent with each other. Yes, the case study confirms the theory through empirical testing. It's not hypothetical, it's not model building or speculative or armchair theorizing. It's empirical, based on evidence. I mentioned that green revolution can be studied or has been studied as a case. What were the components of green revolution? What was the data? The data, researchers' data, this study was done. I will give you the reference of this later. Parallel. Parallel made the study of green revolution in India. His data was literature on green revolution. 86 footnotes are given. It does not mean that the author studied only 86 things. He studied many more things, but 86 are found to be the most important thing, and they are given in the footnote. History of research. To understand green revolution of India, you have to understand the history of research in green revolution. Uh, where was green revolution kind of thing research? It was research in China, it was research in Japan and its colonies, Korea, Taiwan, much before green revolution occurred in India. What was the context? The context was what the worsening food situation in India, traditional agriculture being resistant to change, and occupational relationships in rural areas, Jajmani system. Uh, the fear of hunger, widespread hunger, food shortage. Uh, then what are the components of green revolution? Oh, green revolution has not been produced by one single thing. There was international concern about fighting hunger in India that played a major role in making green revolution success in Indian context. Then availability of capital for research, you require money for research and action. Rockefeller Foundation and the Ford Foundation came forward. International research centers across the world Successful and failed experiment in different world regions. All the experiments had not succeeded, but some succeeded, some failed. Development of high yield variety seeds suitable for Indian conditions. Reorganization of research centers and universities under a single umbrella of ICAR, Indian Council of Agricultural Research. Coordination between political leaders and the leading role in in planning for or in laying foundation of something like Green Revolution in India was laid down by Agriculture Minister C. Subramanian. Bureaucracy. Bureaucracy had to be reoriented. If bureaucracy is not reoriented, Green Revolution would not succeed. So see how many components are there. The basic assumption of case study design that each unit is divisible. No, there is no unit which is indivisible. So Green Revolution can be divided into all these. University, role of universities and various departments, not only agriculture department, but many other departments also. Then changing assumptions about farmers. If you assume that farmers would not change, any scientific research in labs would not succeed. So changing assumptions, extension researches, talking to farmers, behavioral change communication, changing assumptions about farmers as irrational and fatalist. Then Green Revolution in India occurred in three stages. Development of a new research system. Second, in the second phase, institutional or bureaucratic reforms and technology transfer. And in the third stage, diffusion and adoption of new technology. See, Green Revolution is such a subject that one can speak on Green Revolution for hours and for months. I give this example in this presentation only to show that Green Revolution has been an interesting case to study, and using case study perspective opens our eyes to a number of factors, some of which are internal, some of which are external, some of which are related to money, some of which are related to organization of bureaucracy, some of which are related to our assumptions regarding farmers or farmers' behavior or behavioral change communication, and then only we understand how Green Revolution occurred in it. Michael Burawoy extended case method is an extension of case design. Conventionally, the case design, case study researchers seek an idiographic understanding of a particular case, or idiographic means particular, uh, uh, something which is unique to an individual or a community or a group, as against the other notion of nomothetic or general or universal. Or they may use it for nomothetic theories, that, for example, using a grounded theory approach. Extended case method rebuilds or improves a theory instead of approving or rejecting it. Michael Burawoy, 1991, used case studies for discovering flaws in and then modifying existing social theory. And using extended case method, Catherine Fox in 1991, who studied, in case of HIV prevention, the treatment model, found that those at risk will come to clinics for services was faulty. In India also this was proven when in family planning program we developed clinical approach. We found that we assume that all those who need family planning services will come to these clinics and avail. But actually this did not happen, and therefore there was a need for extension education. In Fox's case study, using extended case design, they found that the assumption that people will come to clinics for HIV services was faulty, and that it is necessary to understand subcultures of drug addicts or prostitutes through field research and by interacting with them. In my own empirical field researches, I often found that there are many communities who are suspicious of the government system, health department. And no matter how good facilities you create at sub-center, PSC, or CSC, or district level, they uh, they would hesitate to go to the facility and avail. Friends, there are some references, but before that, I want to summarize everything what we have learned. We have learned that case study is a research design, not a method. All methods can be combined. So in this design, you can use one specific method, you can use ethnographic method, you can use survey also, you can use longitudinal method, anything to study real-time phenomena. The focus is on real time. Any method, real time, empirical evidence. With case design, you study a unit with its components and in all its relationships with the context. Any or all methodologies and methods can be used. There is a high degree of freedom, means number of variables that you can incorporate in the study. And you can also study spatial and temporal variation. I thought that some of you who find this presentation interesting may pursue this further and go through these references. You may see these references. I have arranged them alphabetically. Allen Lee, Melvin, Barlow, Campbell, Parile, Green Revolution, Dumas, Gilgan, Gehring, and McDermott. Uh, and so in all, I have shown these 16 references. Uh, thank you, friends. Let me summarize once again. I had a summary slide also, but let me summarize once again. My purpose of discussing case study with you is to remove the myth, to fight the myth that case study is a method. And most commonly, I find that those who use case study along with surveys, they think that merely describing the demographic, socioeconomic uh, background characteristics of some of the respondents constitutes a case study. No, I don't think. Use case study as a design. And there are some basic things that you should keep in mind. That case study assumes that everything is divisible. There is no unit, no family, no organization, no event, no history, no process which cannot be divided into its basic components. And study of those components, their interrelationships, new combinations of interrelationships, and their relationship with the external environment uh, in real time and based on empirical data is the case study design. I hope that some of you may find it interesting and use case study in your subsequent researches. Thank you very much. Only this much for today.